Welcome, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Happy Lunar New Year. Can you hear me okay and the music? Beautiful. We're going to give it about a minute or two for a few other folks to join. So, in the meantime, I'd love to hear from you. Where are you joining us from? And if you feel inspired to share the answer to this question, what's one change that you've made in your life that has actually felt relatively easy? I'm sure there's at least one that you can think of. Welcome, everyone. We're going to get started in about a minute. If you're just joining, I'd love for you to introduce yourself in the chat. And there are some prompts on the screen. Welcome, Kelly. Waking up earlier has been easy for you. I'd love to know your secret for that one. Welcome, Vanessa, Marta, Tiana, Julie. So great to see some familiar faces here, as well as some new friends. Hi, Tony and Thomas. Welcome, everyone. I'm sure that folks will continue to trickle in the next couple of minutes. But I want to get started, and I want to start with a few deep breaths. So, wherever you are, I invite you to just close out all the other windows on your computer so you don't get distracted. Maybe turn your phone onto silent or turn off your notifications. And when you feel ready, like you've closed out other distractions, we're going to just take a moment to arrive all together. You can close your eyes if you like, or you're welcome to just lower your gaze. The point is to just take a moment for yourself with your attention on your inner world. So let's take a deep breath in through the nose all together. And exhale, sigh it out of the mouth with a sound. Take one more deep breath in like that. Breathe in deep into the belly, fill up all the lungs. And exhale, let it go. Breathe in deep through the nose again. Make it your deepest breath of the day, deep into the belly, puffing the chest out, filling the lungs. Breathe in a little more. And then let it out with a sound. And we'll breathe in for 1, 2, 3, 4, and a longer exhale for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Breathe in for 1, 2, 3, 4, and exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathe in 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathe in and continue a few more rounds on your own. If you need to adjust the count to make it more comfortable for your own breath, that's great. The point is to just have a longer exhale. And just allow everything else to just melt into the background, just focusing on your breathing and your counting. Allowing your counting and the feeling of your breath in your body to fill up your full attention just for the next few moments. You can finish your last round, let go of the counting, and just allow your breath to flow naturally in and out through your nose. And from this place of maybe a little more presence, a little more awareness, ask yourself, what seeds would you like to plant this year? What's something that your heart really yearns for, that you deeply desire to bring to fruition in your life? Could be something small or seemingly small, like waking up a little earlier every day. Or it could be something big, like changing your job or career or relationship. And maybe even allow yourself to be surprised by the answer. Maybe it's something that you haven't even thought much about before. And allow that sense of purpose, that desire. Just breathe it in and notice how it feels to allow yourself to desire that. You can imagine this as a tiny seed in the center of your chest in your heart space. And when you feel ready, when you feel complete, you're welcome to open your eyes, maybe take some gentle stretches that feel good, and bring this sense of presence and purpose with you into the rest of our hour together, where we will be watering the seeds that we just envisioned that we planted together in community. And this is a very beautiful day to do that because it is the Lunar New Year, something that my ancestors have been celebrating for a long time. And I think no matter where we come from, all of our ancestry, if you go back far enough, had a culture that was based around the cycles of nature and working with the intelligence of nature's cycles. You know, it doesn't make sense to try and harvest fruit in the middle of the winter if you're working with in agriculture. So I think there's a lot of wisdom to be gained from our ancestral cultures. And today is a really powerful day because it's a new moon, the start of this new Lunar New Year. And in the Chinese cosmological system, it is the year of the snake, which is a very powerful year to make change in our lives, to shed old patterns. And it's the year of the wood snake. And wood is especially related to flexibility and change. So there might be a lot of disruption and change in our life this year, whether we like it or not. And the invitation is to tap into the wisdom of the snake and the power of the snake to flow with those changes and use this energy, harness it to create the life that we truly desire. So I'm really excited to be sharing this with all of you. And in the rest of our time together, we'll be going through three main parts. One is the formula for change, some common pitfalls that I've seen in my work, working with both individuals one-on-one and organizations to change, and how to avoid them. And then finally, what are some really practical, actionable strategies you can put into place to make change in your own life? And I want you to leave here with real actionable action steps so that you feel inspired and have something you can go in and do by the end of the session. That is my desire for you. And some agreements for us today is to bring a beginner's mind. Some of the information that I share may be familiar to you, but see if you can let it land in a new way or open up a new insight for you. So allow yourself to really come and be open to learning. The second is listen with your full body. So really, again, I encourage you to close down any distractions, to set aside your other devices and be fully present here and really breathe and notice how the information is landing in your body. There will be opportunities for you to reflect and for us to share. And I just encourage you to share from your own experience rather than giving other people here advice or telling them what they should do. And finally, take care of yourself, because these are going to be potentially some deep topics. So if you need to take a break, if you need to run to the restroom, get a drink of water, stretch, turn your video off for a moment, I really encourage all of that and want you to prioritize taking care of yourself and want you to feel like you leave this Zoom meeting restored, rejuvenated, and inspired. So do whatever you need to do to make that happen for you. So with that, I think we have our full group here. So I'd love for everyone else to just take themselves off mute for a moment and just say hi to everyone here. And remember that we're all here together. We're real humans, not just little squares on the computer. So please take yourself off mute and just say hello. I'd love to hear your voices.
Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello,
Hello.
everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. So wonderful to hear you all. I feel like I get inspired just feeling the energy of everyone together. And I also invite you to put your screen in gallery view if you can't see everyone, and just that really helps me feel connected. So that's a suggestion for you. So if you're here, I want to know a little bit more about you. So if you are here because you want to know how to actually stick to a new habit, because you've tried to change your lifestyle or get healthy or whatever it is, and you've been finding it challenging, if you want to learn a system for how to stick to new habits, if that's you, please type a 1 in the chat. Awesome. And if you're here because you want to know how to deal with times of transition with greater ease, maybe you're going through some changes. I know a lot of people in my community have been laid off or are changing roles. So if that's you, type a 2 in the chat, regardless of the transition you're going through. And finally, if you want to find more clarity about what you even want to change in your life this year, type a 3 in the chat. Because I know that can sometimes be really hard, especially when we're so busy and overwhelmed, to know what do we actually want. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of numbers in the chat. Wonderful. So you all came to the right place, and we're going to go through all of these topics today. And I want to give you the whole juice of this session up front. And because it's Lunar New Year, it's orange juice. So we always give and eat orange on this holiday. So the juice of this session is willpower does not work in the long run. If you're relying on willpower alone, you are doomed to fail at whatever you set your heart to. So let's release this idea that we can just push ourselves, we can just force ourselves to change through sheer will. It doesn't work. Second, stress is the change killer. Stress is the number one thing that inhibits our brain from actually being open and receptive to change on a physiological level. That's bad news for most of us who live in this modern society where we're all pretty much chronically stressed. But the good news is that there is something you can do about that, which is to use your breath to transform that stress into energy. And I'm going to talk more about the science behind all of this and how it works today as well. And finally, if the seed that you want to plant for your life, or the change that you want to plant in your life is the seed, then community is the soil in which you need to plant it for it to grow. So if you get anything from this session, these are the takeaways that I really want you to leave with. And I'm going to explain more behind each of them. So let's get into it. The formula for change. So I saw a lot of 1s, 2s, and 3s in the chat, so maybe this resonates with you. I want to start with a story of someone I'll call Spiraling Susie, but really she's a collection of almost everyone I've ever met in my entire life, including myself. Starting the new year so motivated by a super long list of all the things that she wants to do to improve, She sticks to her really ambitious commitments for a few days and then ends up getting overwhelmed and stressed out and defaulting to old patterns. And this creates a really deep sense of shame, feeling like something's wrong with her, and then rebounding with renewed motivation. Okay, I got to fix myself, I got to get better, but then quickly falling back into the same spiral. And despite going to therapy, doing yoga, healing work, having a bookshelf full of self-help books, she still can't break free from this cycle. If you resonate with this, type a me too in the chat. I'd love to know that I'm not alone. Because I think for so long, I was experiencing this and struggling in silence. And so I think there's something so healing about realizing that so many other people out there are dealing with the same thing. Me too. Yeah, I'm really glad to hear that. Not glad, but I I'm hopeful that today will give you some support and some inspiration for how to get out of this and into the story of a different human, aligned Ashley, who has a really compassionate relationship with her body, who talks kindly to herself and actively tends to her inner world, who knows exactly what she wants and follows through with it with clarity, purpose, and devotion over the long term. She knows how important managing stress is and has tools for how to do that so it doesn't derail her from her goals. She's not afraid of all the craziness, disruption, ecologically, economically, politically that's happening in the world because she has such a deep well of inner confidence and trusts her body and intuition to guide her through life and actualize her purpose. And I'm really grateful that probably 80 to 90% of the time now, I feel like Ashley. I'm still human. I still have my spiral days for sure, but I'm really happy that I've made this really big shift. And so if you also are here because you want to be more like Ashley, yeah, give me um a little body language. Yes. So we all have Ashley in us. I'm sure you've felt some of this at certain points in your life, at certain times. You might know what some of these qualities feel like. And so what I really want to do today is to give you tools to feel more like this more of the time. And so this is my own story of how I went from spiraling to aligned. Just to give you some context as to why this is so important to me and why I feel so called to share this with the world. I started my career in New York City as a strategy consultant in a very prestigious firm. I was a high performer. I got promoted really quickly. I was an accelerated track, and I got a very unique, prestigious role working directly with C-suite executive teams to transform their organizations. So the other people in my role or comparable role to me were around a decade older than me. And I had also started doing yoga when I was 19. And honestly, I'm so grateful to yoga for saving me in many ways. And I became a yoga teacher at age 22. So I was teaching yoga classes at 7 a.m. in the morning, then commuting to my office in Midtown and flying all over the country, doing workshops with C-suite executives. And on the surface, my life looked amazing. It looked like I was healthy. I had an amazing group of friends. I was in a relationship with a wonderful man. I had hobbies. I had purpose. I had a great job. But behind that was a whole stack of unhealthy coping mechanisms that were there holding this all in place. I was smoking weed almost every night just to manage my anxiety and to be able to fall asleep. Every weekend, I was going out heavily drinking, taking drugs. I had been struggling with disordered eating since I was a teenager, which was something that I held a lot of shame around. And even though I'd been to therapy for it, I never was quite able to shake the grip that those habits had on me. I relied on caffeine to keep going. Even though I was in a relationship that was wonderful in many ways, it definitely had some unhealthy and codependent qualities. And for some years, I didn't really think this was much of a problem because a lot of these things were so normalized in my social circle. It was only when my body really started breaking down that I got the message that things needed to change. So over the years, I had struggled with all different kinds of chronic health conditions, from hormone imbalance, PCOS, chronic yeast infections, chronic sinus infections. There were months where I couldn't breathe out of my nose, to eventually having a full immune system breakdown, really extreme chronic fatigue and burnout, and the whole host of digestive issues and many other things that came along with that. So, fortunately, fast forward to now, I have found my purpose as an entrepreneur, teaching Reiki, breath work, and coaching people in Kriya, which is the science of transformation. I've been sober for 6 years. I'm the healthiest and the strongest that I've been in my life. And I'm engaged to the love of my life, which I'm so excited about. And I really am awed by the level of love and the healthiness of our communication and our connection. So, what changed in all of these areas of my life? And I think it's important to note that these are all connected, because there are so many people out there who will say, oh, let me help you with, your health or your relationship or your career. And what I really experienced is that all of these things are deeply interconnected. And when we start working with Kriya, the science of transformation, you start to make changes in all these ways to come more aligned. And so that's what really changed for me. In 2019, I took 5 months off and I went to India and I did lots of deep meditation and yoga trainings. I had already been teaching yoga for years and meditating for a long time at this point, but I did this really deep Kriya yoga training for 5 weeks that completely changed my whole perspective. And the difference between this and any other practice that I'd done in the past was the focus on the breath. And we were doing hours and hours of breath work, Kriya practices every day. And I came back completely different. And since then, for the last 5 years, I've been really consistently practicing these techniques almost every day and helping other people integrate them into their life. And through this process, I've noticed that by focusing more and more on the breath, stress naturally melts away. The coping mechanisms that used to feel so essential naturally melt away. And I don't need to struggle to change the things in my life. I can allow them to gradually come into alignment at their own pace. So this is my formula for change that I've learned through both working with people one-on-one over the last 5 years to make really deep changes in their life through daily practice, but also from my work consulting for organizations as well. To have a sustainable change, you need to have desire, you need to want to change, and you need to have the energy or the motivation to actually take action. So I want to ask all of you to write in the chat, what's one thing that you are excited to or have desire to change in your life this year, that you have energy to change? So maybe it's the seed that you planted in our beginning practice, maybe it's something different, but I'd love for you all to share, if you're open to it, what's one thing that you want to activate in your life with this formula this year? And going back to one of my opening statements, if change is the seed and community is the soil, this is your opportunity to plant the seed of this change in this community and let it be watered and let it be nourished. So I'll give you a moment to write that in the chat. Create a daily writing practice. Lose weight. Thank you all for sharing. Changing relationship to work and stop letting anxiety drive your behaviors. I can really relate to that one. Getting physically stronger, waking up earlier. So already we have one that someone else in this community has successfully changed. So this is amazing that you're already, I hope, can connect with each other if you like in the chat, and see, start to exchange tips and ideas too. And I really want to encourage that. So wonderful. If all we needed was desire and energy, why would we have resistance to doing all of these things? Shouldn't it be easy because we want to change and we're motivated to do it? Why are we still struggling with all of these things that you wrote in the chat? It's because we think consciously that we want to change, but actually subconsciously, there are all these parts of us that may not share the same desires, may have conflicting desires because they're afraid of what that change may bring. Because what's familiar is comfortable. And because the coping mechanisms that we've developed that maybe we now want to change are actually really intelligent and are helping us in some way. So, for example, with my smoking weed, I couldn't have just stopped that cold turkey back then. That was playing a really important role helping me regulate my physiology and my anxiety and the circumstances that I was dealing with in my life. So, we think we want to change, but really our subconscious and our physiology might not have the same desires as us. And I always love this quote by Carl Jung: until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So a big part of Kriya is also illuminating these subconscious patterns and bringing them into our awareness so we can start to work with them and bring them into alignment. On the energy side, we might mentally think, oh, I'm so excited to do this. I have a lot of motivation to make this change. These are all the actions I want to take. But then life gets in the way, right? We're so busy at work. It's so easy to get overwhelmed and exhausted by our to-do list. And most of us have been in a state of chronic stress physiologically for a long time. And I'll share more about how that really inhibits our openness to change. So if you're ready to shift out of spiraling and coming into more easeful, aligned change, like bringing more of that Ashley energy into your life, I do have an opportunity for you all to go deeper with this. I'm really excited about this because this is the first time I'm turning my one-on-one methodology that I've been refining for the last 5 years into a community program where you'll practice 21 days of Kriya practices to reshape your brain, unwind your old patterns, and learn a blend of ancient wisdom and modern science to transform your life without relying on willpower or discipline. So I'm going to be sharing a little bit more about that, but I want to plant the seed that if you're already intrigued by these concepts or want to know how to overcome these barriers of change, there's an opportunity for you to go deeper with that. So let's talk about some of the common pitfalls. One, you believe you can force yourself to change with willpower or discipline alone. And I really want to go into debunking this. When we think we can change due to willpower and discipline alone, we set overly ambitious goals, which sets us up in an opposition to ourselves. We think we need to dominate or overcome the bad parts of ourselves that have these coping mechanisms or can't get up earlier. And we unintentionally start shaming and pushing these parts of ourselves into the shadows. We also don't fully acknowledge the impacts of chronic stress on our physiology and how it actually changes our brain and makes it harder for us to make new habits. And I've seen this working with so many people that when we buy into the willpower narrative, we interpret failure as a personal fault. And that brings a lot of shame, feelings of deficiency, depression, isolation, hopelessness, and a lot of stress and anxiety and perfectionism. And another big part of why I'm so passionate about this topic and bringing this information to the world is I also think this willpower ideology is very rooted in this colonial paradigm that no matter where you're from, we all got raised in to some degree, where the philosophy is to dominate nature and dominate and control our bodies. I actually was looking up the root of the word discipline, and it's actually really beautiful. It comes from Greek. It's connected to the word disciple, and the original idea of discipline is to fully give yourself to learning a new field of study, which I think is really beautiful. But in the last couple hundred years, the meaning of discipline has been distorted, and it's been very much connected with punishment and control. And those are qualities that actually make it much harder for us to change and make it much easier for us to stay stuck in loops. When you really acknowledge that willpower is not enough, it frees you. It liberates so much energy because you're no longer wasting all your energy feeling like you're at fault, something's wrong with you. You get out of those spirals. You set more realistic goals, have more self-compassion, you're able to have a plan that addresses the barriers to change and actively build tools and a system of support to help you deal with stress and setbacks in the process, which are inevitable. So the bottom line, willpower and discipline don't work. Instead, set yourself up for success by creating a realistic plan that addresses all those barriers to change that we talked about, the subconscious fears, the stress, and use proven tools to support you to overcome those things instead of just ignoring them, pushing them in the shadows, and hoping that your willpower will overcome them. Pitfall number 2, not proactively addressing stress. I'm going to get a little nerdy with the science here. So bear with me. If you have questions, please put them in the chat, but I'm going to try and make this as digestible as possible. When I say stress, I don't mean stressors, which are the external events that are happening in your life that prompt your body to go into a state of physiological stress. Because two different people can face the same stressors, but their bodies can have very different reactions. One person can go through the situation totally calm. The other person can get really stressed out. And that's based on our own unique backgrounds and the way that our brains and nervous systems were conditioned in early childhood. So when I talk about stress, I'm not talking about the external stuff. I'm talking about what's happening in your body. And stress is a measurable state that you can look at in terms of what's happening in your autonomic nervous system. The nervous system has two main modes, and it's called autonomic because it happens automatically. This is literally not within our conscious control. We evolved so that we didn't have to think about every little thing that our bodies have to do every day. We don't think about digesting food, filtering our blood, all those things. Actually great that we don't need to use our conscious capacity to do all this stuff. The downside is our body is doing a lot of stuff that we can't necessarily control and is not necessarily always in our best interest. So to break down the two modes of what happens in the autonomic nervous system, the first is the stress response. You can think of this as like the gas pedal being stepped on to kick your system into gear when you feel like there's a threat in your environment. And you might have heard this called fight or flight or survival state. And I'll explain in a moment the really deep changes that happen in your body and brain when that happens. The flip side of that is the parasympathetic, the rest and digest response, which is when everything kind of calms down. And here's what happens in the body. In sympathetic, your heart rate quickens, your body releases stress hormones, your muscles tense, you're preparing for some kind of physical survival situation. And this is really useful. If you're about to be hit by a car, you want to be in a sympathetic state. It's not a bad thing. The problem is in our modern world, and because of a lot of our childhood experiences, when we're perceiving threats in our environment all the time, even notifications, emails can feel like a threat. And so most of us are in a sympathetic state chronically. And that creates a lot of health issues, especially digestive system, immune system. And because these are designed to be in balance. We're designed to be able to go into a sympathetic state and then come down into parasympathetic. So chronic stress is really the issue when your body's in a sympathetic state most of the time without down regulating. And this has a huge impact on our ability to change, because when we're in a sympathetic state, our brain shuts down activity in the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain that makes humans unique from all other mammals. We have the most developed prefrontal cortex, and it's what gives us our incredible creativity, collaboration, ability to create, advanced technology. It also controls our impulse control, working memory, decision-making, planning. So when you're chronically stressed, you physically have less access to these qualities. So it's no surprise that when you're chronically stressed out, you end up overwhelmed and defaulting to those old coping mechanisms because you literally don't have access to that part of your brain that helps you with impulse control, with long-term planning, with finding creative solutions. It's so natural that you might end up spiraling like Susie. And so if you take something away, is that it's not your fault. You're not a bad person. You're not a failure because willpower didn't work. It's literally your body's natural response to stress to channel all its energy away from the prefrontal cortex and into your physical survival mechanisms. The other thing is when you're in a state of stress, you're on heightened alert for threats. So you're scanning your environment more, looking out for more threats. So when you're in a survival state, anything new is potentially threatening. Anything that is familiar, that keeps you safe, feels comfortable. In a survival state, you're much less likely to be open to new ideas and new habits. And this is something that I think we all know intuitively. The worst time to bring up your great new idea to your boss or your partner is when they're extra stressed out, right? Like they're not open to that. Like we all know this from our own lived experience. And now there's a lot of neuroscience showing that. So when you ignore the impacts of chronic stress, you end up with potentially a lot of chronic health conditions like me, lack clarity about your desires or what actions to take. And when you're in this chronic state of anxiety and overwhelm and survival mechanism, you kind of miss out on realizing how easy change could be if your body wasn't in this state. So the good news is that you can activate your parasympathetic response in a few minutes by using your breath. And there are many other ways to unwind your body from stress, but I love breath work because it's so simple. It's accessible to anyone, regardless of your fitness level. You don't need any fancy equipment or, specific clothing. Anyone can do it right now. So what I want to invite you to do is to do a short Kriya breathwork practice with me right now and experience it for yourself. So you're welcome to sit up nice and tall. If you're sitting in a chair, I recommend placing both feet firmly on the floor, sitting up so you're not slouching back. And make sure you have space to move your arms because this is going to involve a little bit of movement too. So the breath pattern we're going to do is a deep breath in through the nose and a deep sigh out the mouth. Good. And we're going to pair that with this movement. And of course, if you have an injury or something where this doesn't feel good, you can just skip the movement and do the breath pattern. But if you can, we'll do this movement and we'll start together. So bring our arms up like this into this cactus shape. Palms are open. We'll breathe in, arch the spine, breathing in through the nose, breathing out through the mouth as we curl our spine and bring our hands into fists, elbows in. And breathe in, open up, stretch the chest, look up, breathe out, hands into fists, curl inwards. Deep breaths, breathe in and exhale. Continue at your own pace. Can you breathe a little deeper? Good. Stretch a little further if you can. And on your next exhale, really let it out, maybe with a sound. And feel that release. Breathing in, filling yourself up with fresh energy, fresh oxygen. And breathing out, emptying out that stress, emptying out anything you no longer need. We'll do a few more rounds with this, so keep going. If your mind wanders, can you just bring it back to the breath? If your body feels a little tense or tight, that's totally normal. Just keep breathing, keep moving. Good. Last few rounds, let's pick up the pace a little. Breathing, moving a little quicker. Deep breath. Just three more. Make them count. Breathe so deep, deeper than you thought was possible. Last one. And take a deep breath in, sit up tall, relax your shoulders, relax your arms. Exhale fully. Just take a moment to breathe naturally in and out through your nose. Let that settle. Slow, deep breaths in and out through your nose. And just notice how you feel right now. Notice the effect of that 2-minute practice on how you feel. When you feel ready, you can gently open your eyes. I love to see in the chat one word about how you feel right now or the impact the practice had on you, whatever the first thing that comes to mind. Refreshed, calmer, steadying, exhilarating, peace, relaxed, here, more spacious. Okay, this is pretty incredible. You all changed your state and are feeling this way after just literally less than 3 minutes. So imagine what could happen if you devoted 15 to 20 minutes of your day every day to doing this. The effects compound as well. So the more you practice, the more your body not just feels less stress in the moment, but you start to rewire your nervous system so that you become more resilient to stress. And you can benefit from having this greater sense of well-being, better physical health. I mean, there's just an insane scientific literature right now about how reducing stress can benefit you in so many ways. And really, it's the first step that you should be focusing on to make change last, rather than focusing on the specific thing that you want to do. Like that will come easy when you bring your body out of chronic stress. And the way that I found most effective to do that is to use these Kriya breathwork practices to transform that stress into energy. So finally, the third common mistake that I see is trying to do it alone. It's no secret that all the most effective behavior change and recovery programs are structured heavily around community. Even just hugging someone for a few minutes produces oxytocin, which reduces stress and creates all these great beneficial health results and makes you more open to change. So don't stay trying to change in isolation, staying stuck, frustrated, isolated, depressed, more likely to give up on your own without seeing the bigger picture, and instead really focus on building community around you that helps you not only celebrate your wins, get support and encouragement, but I've also found it so helpful to release shame and feel connected to other people with similar experiences who can reorient me to my long-term goals when I have those setbacks in the moment. So those are the three common challenges. And now, if you're ready, I want to share some strategies, some real actions you can take to avoid these and make change easier this year. If you're ready for this, type a yes in the chat, or give me a little wave. I always love to see the body language. Yes, amazing. It makes such a difference for me to feel your energy. Cool. So these are my top 3 strategies for change. Kriya, I've already talked about how powerful these practices are. Focusing on the breath to unwind your energy, becoming compassionate. So this is where we really unwind the willpower ideology and start to treat ourselves with kindness and community. So Kriya, I want to talk a bit more about this because I know it might be a new word for some of you. It's a Sanskrit word that means an action that leads to evolution. And it's also a whole branch of yoga and yoga philosophy that I feel very blessed to carry this lineage from the Himalayas. And in the view of Kriya philosophy, evolution is inherent to all life. It's a natural process of growth and adaptation. Within each of us is the seed of a great tree bearing tons of beautiful fruit. My yoga teacher would always use the mango tree example, I think, because he loves mangoes, and I do too. So imagine there's a mango tree, and it wants to grow and it wants to blossom, but it needs the right conditions. And all of us are carrying some skaras or imprints from our past that create patterns of thinking or behavior that inhibit this natural process of evolution. And now the science shows that our brains are most plastic between the ages of 0 to 7, and that's when most of our habitual neural pathways, patterns of thinking and behavior are formed. So these samskaras are something that the yogis described in ancient texts, but I can see how they're reflected, or how this concept is reflected in a lot of the latest science of how our brains form. The really empowering thing about Kriya philosophy is that it's a whole methodology in science for liberating your mind and body from these samskaras, from these patterns, these coping mechanisms that we developed in the past that are inhibiting us from flourishing into that mango tree and giving our fruits to the world. So the process of Kriya is activating your natural capacity to evolve and adapt to life. It helps you surface and unwind those subconscious samskaras that are imprinted in your brain and your body, but might not be in your conscious awareness, that are actually resistant to change. And it helps you transform that stress into energy that you can use to take action towards your goals. So if you want to join Year of the Straight Snake, if you're like, yes, this is the year, I want to learn more about Kriya, I want to know more about these practices, you have the opportunity to do that. We start on Sunday. It's a 21-day program where your commitment is to do a 20-minute Kriya practice every day just for those 21 days. The practice is comprised of 4 different simple breath techniques. We just did one together, and you'll learn 3 others. And you also get access to a whole on-demand library of many, many more different Kriya techniques that you can use for different purposes. There's actually thousands of these techniques. Each have a very different specific effect on your brain, your nervous system, your energy, and your state. And what's so amazing is you don't need any specific equipment or anything fancy set up. It's just you and your breath, no matter what your physical health or physical condition is. This is accessible to everyone. And through this practice, you'll develop new neural pathways, increase your physiological resilience to stress. So if I look back at myself a couple years ago, even the slightest small thing would send me into spirals. And now I can face a lot of those things. I notice that my body is not having the same reaction anymore. And that's the power of compound effect. And while this is a 21-day program, I really desire, my goal for everyone is that after the 21 days, you have a relationship with these tools, you have a relationship with these practices that you can use for the rest of your life whenever you need them. And I've done this program one-on-one with more than 50 people now. Majority of them still text me years later to say, I'm still doing the practice. It's still having an amazing effect on my life. Actually, Rugil is here. She's one of those people. I'm going to share a bit of her story in a moment. And so this is the 21 days is really the beginning of a lifelong process of transformation, but it's structured in a way that's achievable, that makes it really easy for you to break off. So this is what Rincy did. She used the daily breath work to provide a powerful shift in her inner state and perspective, to clear her mental fog, anxiety, and overthinking, and as a result, discover newfound clarity for her life and career. And from this place of inner knowing and confidence, made a big shift in her job and choices in that area. So I really want this for all of you, because I believe that the world is in a very interesting moment in history. We're facing a lot of combined crises. And the more each of you can be in your purpose and be fully giving your gifts to the world, and activating you to do that is one of the ways that I can be of greatest service. So if you aren't ready to make that commitment to join us in Year of the Snake, this is something you can do right now. Practice either the 4-8 breath we did right at the beginning or the spinal breath, which was the practice we just did recently. Just do it for 3 minutes a day every week for the next week and see how you feel and see what emerges. Another free resource that I want to give you is my breath toolbox, which has 3 different Kriya practices. You can get it free on my website, and that's also something you can use to have a guided version of this right now. So, Kriya, if you feel inspired to incorporate this into your life, take a note. And we're going to talk about compassion, because this is so important. And I spent far too much of my life stuck in stress, anxiety, perfectionism, having a ruthless inner critic, and constantly being in spirals of shame, having really mean voices bullying me. And what I learned is that, and probably you all know this from your experience, that the kids on the playground who are the worst bullies, they're the ones who are hurting the most, who have the toughest time at home. And so I learned the same thing is true in my inner world. The voices inside me that are the most bullying towards me, the most wanting me to change with willpower and discipline, those are actually the parts of me that need the most compassion, that are hurting the most. And so if you feel ready to shift out of that spiral and to step into a new relationship with yourself and your inner world, I invite you to say out loud with me this statement, and you can place your hands on your heart or bring your hands together, whatever feels like a gesture of sincerity to you. We're going to take a deep breath in and breathe it out and really feel the gravity of this moment. We're going to say it together. I hereby release myself from blame and shame. From this moment on, I promise to treat myself with curiosity, love, and kindness. Yes, I felt that. I felt something shift really powerfully. And I hope this is the beginning for all of you, but of course, it's a lifelong process to befriend yourself and all of your inner voices with compassion. My philosophy on this has been really shaped by internal family systems, which is a form of therapy. And so if you want to go deeper into this work, I also recommend finding your own IFS therapist, and I'll send out resources for that in the follow-up email as well. And compassion is a practice, and here's how we practice it in the 21-day program, Year of the Snake. Firstly, the Kriya breathwork practice is a practice in observer consciousness. So being fully with your body and your thoughts and noticing what arises without judgment. This is sometimes called metacognition in the scientific literature on this right now. So we practice not getting stressed out, not reacting, just noticing with spaciousness what comes up, what voices are there when we do our practice. We do that 20 minutes a day. So we build that muscle, and eventually over time, we're more able to do that in our daily life. And we also get curious about these voices through different self-inquiry and reflective journaling practices. We use our breath, and there are also weekly live coaching calls and other video lessons to help you work on this. So that's what one of my clients did, Rebecca. She experienced so much change working with me, having more energy, strength, more in touch with herself, more positive outlook, and feels a greater capacity to withstand change in the world and in her life at large. And so this is your action. If you're not ready to jump into the Year of the Snake yet, here you can start with finding your own IFS or somatic therapist. There's also a really great book called No Bad Parts by Dr. Richard Schwartz, who is the creator of this system. So I really recommend that. I'll also send in the follow-up email. And I also love this self-inquiry journaling practice to help me build a kinder relationship with my body, which is just asking my body, how can I take better care of you, and writing down what I hear and trying to take action on that. So those are some things you can do right now to support yourself in this way. And finally, community. You've heard me talk about this a lot. It's a big part of Year of the Snake. And this is the main reason why I felt called to shift out of one-on-one work and into doing group programs, because I noticed everyone I was working with was going through similar things, and that it would be so much more powerful if we could be together cheering each other on. So in the program, there's time for you to share about your experience. You'll be in a small group of 3 or 4. So you'll really get to have deep relationships with people you meet. Right now, the group is about 16 people. So it's also a nice intimate size. And we'll also have an ongoing community chat throughout the course of the 21 days too, where you can reach out for support at any time. And Rugila, I know you're here. So this is your what you shared with me. I know at first it seemed really ambitious to take on a new 20-minute practice, especially if you're new to breath work. But due to the support of the program, you can't imagine the mornings without it, and would recommend this to everyone. And you'll wonder why you haven't been doing this already. So if there's anything else you want to share, you're welcome to put it in the chat. I'm so grateful that you're here and so value the way that you've encouraged me to expand this work over the years. I really wouldn't be here without you, actually. So if you're not ready to jump in yet, this is what you can do on your own right now: is find an accountability buddy. So whatever that seed is that you want to change, ask someone to be your accountability buddy, check in with them once a week, talk about it, cheer each other on, or simply make space to just have more gatherings with your friends, because that will reduce your stress and help you feel supported no matter what. So those are some of my suggestions for you. And we're coming to the close of our session. So I want to remind you of the juice, which is stop relying on willpower, which doesn't work, and blaming yourself for not being able to change. Address stress using your breath, and plant the changes that you wish to see in the soil of community to help them grow and nourish. So if you're really ready to jump out of spiraling and into a more aligned approach, I really want to encourage you to consider joining Year of the Snake. We start on Sunday. I know it seems soon, but I want to give you, you'll have a few days to really think about it. And for those of you who feel sure, who are on this call and are like, yes, I know I want to do this. I feel this is what I need to accelerate me into this next year. If you sign up by tomorrow at 1 p.m., you get a free Kriya consultation with me, which is where I will connect with you about a specific issue or health thing that's going on in your life, and give you just a short 5-minute practice that you can do that's specifically tailored to that issue, whether it's anxiety, insomnia, depression, low energy, challenging emotions. There's Kriya practices for everything. And in addition to that daily set that we're all going to be doing together, you'll have something that's really tailored to what you're specifically working on. So this is my Ong Pao, my New Year gift to you. Favorite part of Chinese New Year when I was a kid was receiving red packets of money, which are blessings of prosperity for the new year. So this is my blessing to you. If you choose to join and become part of our community, I would love to give you this gift and see how it transforms your life. Quick note is that this program, it's not a replacement for a addiction recovery program. It may not be a good place for you if you have really significant childhood trauma that you have never addressed or don't have support addressing, or mental health issues and you're not working with the support of a licensed therapist. I'm not a licensed therapist, but what I can offer is a tried and tested system to break free from tired patterns and coping mechanisms. You'll learn tools that will help you unwind from stress and give you the support you need to make changes to your life over the long term, and find greater clarity on your purpose. So if that resonates with you, if this is you, then we got you. This is what's included. And we start this Sunday. We have live sessions every week, community chat, small group pods, resource library. I'm offering this for a really special price of just $245. I know that Some of you probably know that life coaching can easily cost you thousands of dollars. That's just addressing your work, your health, or your relationships. So, this is an absolutely absurdly amazing price for a system that you can use to transform all areas of your life and that you can use over and over again for as tools for the rest of your life. So, um, that's that's the invitation that is with you. I'll also put the link to join in the chat and the follow-up email. And for those of you who are still here, we'll wrap up in about 3 minutes. If you feel inspired, I'd love to know what's one thing that you're taking away from this workshop. What's one thing that you're inspired to do differently? Maybe it's one of the actions that I suggested from the strategies for change. Maybe it's just thinking about something in a new way. But I'd really love to hear what you're inspired by. And then I'll give you a moment to think about that and write it in the chat. And if you're able to say, we'll close with a very short closing ritual in a moment. Yes, I love seeing everyone inspired to do more breath. Yes, to be kinder, more compassionate to yourselves. So beautiful. Thank you for sharing. I really would love to hear your feedback on this session. So if you want, you're welcome to reach out to me on Instagram or an email. I'll send you a follow up with all the resources that I shared. And for those of you who have another minute, I'll invite you to close your eyes. We'll do a 1 minute closing ritual. You can lower your gaze too if you prefer. We'll just start by taking a deep breath in through the nose and a nice long exhale through the mouth. Allow your breath to return to your natural pace. I want you to imagine that it's the end of this year. This time in 2026, the seed that you planted in this session today has grown and flourished in amazing ways. What's unfolded in your life? How do you feel? What's happening? Really focus on the feeling that you have, seeing this desire, this seed come to fruition. And start to breathe that in. Breathe in that feeling. Breathe in. How it feels to watch yourself blossom in this way. We'll start to rub our hands together and generate some warmth. We'll take a deep breath in, breathing in that feeling. Blow it between your palms. Hold it for a moment at your heart and infuse it with some good energy. And on the count of 3, we'll clap it together into reality. 3, 2, 1. Beautiful. Thank you all so much for staying a little longer to close in that way. If you like, you're welcome to take yourself off mute to say goodbye. And if anyone has any pressing questions, I'm also available to stay for the next couple minutes and chat about that. If you're ready to head out, please just take yourself on mute and say goodbye. And thank you to everyone here for making such a beautiful, inspiring community space. I really appreciate your presence and your intention.
Mother.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you, Mallory.
Bye.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Hi,
I'm so
Mallory.
glad you're able to. Hi, Marta. So good to see you.
Good to see you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Rugale, were you going to say
Okay. Yeah, I'm very new to this. I'm just curious about the roots of the practice. I'm Christian, and so I'm always really conscious about not walking into something that's, just different from those roots. So I wanted to hear a little bit more about just what the roots are and, if you will focus on that or if it is just breath work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really important to me to honor the lineage that the practices come from and to also, everyone make sure everyone's aware of what they're practicing and where it comes from. So I'm happy to share a bit more about that. We'll also do a deeper dive into this at the kickoff session. The practices come from the Kriya Yoga tradition, which originated in the Himalayas in what's now India. And some famous teachers from this tradition include Yogananda, Sri Yukteswar, and the yoga philosophy does connect back to Vedic philosophy, which is also the origin of Hinduism. But you can consider it like a separate branch. I don't think of yoga as a religion. I think of it as a science of transformation, a set of techniques and philosophy that's compatible with all religions. I work with people who come from all different backgrounds, actually, Christian. Actually, there's one woman who's a pretty devout Christian who's in the group already. And I've had Muslim and Jewish people in my communities as well. And so I see it as a complement to the other faith or other spiritual tradition. There's no requirement to have any kind of belief in any kind of deity or anything. Like whatever your personal beliefs are about the divine, are fully welcome. The yoga part is really a system and a process for transforming these patterns. And so that's how I like to explain it. But I always like to honor that it does come from the Himalayas in what's now India. My yoga teacher will always remind us that India is a construct that was created by he's Indian where I studied, but he'll always remind us that India was a concept that was created by the British colonizers, as was Hinduism. And so from his perspective, he believes that it's knowledge that belongs to humanity and should be shared with people across cultures. So that's kind of like how, he's really focused on sharing this wisdom to people from the West, from all different cultures, and very much, he's studied in a very traditional way, and it very much has his blessing to share this with the world.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate you sharing a little bit more. And I'd love to do it. I just, it looked like it was at 10 o'clock Eastern, which is, I'm in Central Time, so 9 o'clock Central on Sundays.
It's 11 Eastern
Okay. So,
on Sundays, so 10 Central.
yeah. So that's around my church time, usually in the morning. So,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you would ever offer it at a different time or if it's recorded or, if it makes sense for me to do it knowing I can't attend. I'd have to be on recordings.
Yeah, I have one person who can't come to the kickoff who still signed up. I think she might be coming to the other sessions though. So what I told her is that it really depends on your own personal preference and learning style. Like some people can be really devoted and take an online course and listen to on their own and do the practice and learn, and that works for them. Other people really need to be there live and want to engage with the group and ask questions. So it really depends on what you think is realistic for you. I will offer a version of this program again in the future, and I can consider doing it at a different time too. But yeah, having said that, what kind of feels right to you?
Yeah, I definitely think I would get more from, just having the interaction.
Yeah.
The knowledge would be wonderful. I think just even having, I'm pretty I hate to use the word discipline, but I'm pretty committed once I
Mm-hmm.
just agree to something. So I'm sure that I would, still watch and still, but I'm sure I'd feel like, oh, I would have said this, or I could have,
Yeah.
changed. Um, yeah, so I need to think about that. But
Hmm.
thank you so much for offering
Yeah.
it, giving of your time and making
Mhm.
it accessible. I would love to participate, like I said, and it will be ongoing, the 21 days, it'll be at the same time.
Um, the sessions are Sundays at 11 for February, and then it's up to you to decide when you want to do the practice. So that's what you do on your own time.
Yep. And then it's an hour long session each Sunday at 10.
The kickoff this Sunday, the second, is 2.5 hours because there's a lot more information to cover. We'll obviously take breaks. So it's 11 to 1:30 Eastern this Sunday. And then the 3 Sundays following, it's just 1 hour because it's more here. I can show you the slide and I'll send this out to you.
Yeah, that helps because I may be able to just join a little late.
Mm-hmm. I think the kickoff is the most important. So if you can make that one, um, that's really where you get the whole context for what we're doing and you learn the techniques. And if you have questions about the techniques, you can ask. So yeah, I would say if you can join the kickoff, then you'll still get a lot out of the program and you can still be involved in the chat. Also, if you do sign up before tomorrow, you'll get that one-on-one with me, which is another time to have, um, that live support as well if you can't make all the group sessions.
Okay, yeah. You know what? I think it can work. I'll look for the link to
Mm-hmm.
sign up. Because like I said, it'll just be have to join a little bit late for the kickoff. Maybe like 10 minutes late or so.
Okay. Yeah, that's no problem.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so
Okay.
much, Mallory. I'm super grateful for you and excited to see what I can learn.
Yeah, well, like think about it, make sure it feels right. And if it does, I would be so delighted to welcome you into the community. And yeah, it's just amazing how I'm always in awe by how much changes for people in such a short amount of time. So
Yeah,
it would be really wonderful to have you be part of it if it feels right.
absolutely. Thank you so
Mhm.
much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Have a beautiful rest of the day.
Thank you, you too. Bye-bye.